What is shaking, y'all? It is your boy, Mark Cordone. And my voice is cracking because I'm so excited for today. But this show, this Golden Mike Live show, started 2 months ago. And when I wrote down, like, folks I wanted to have on a year from now, not 2 months from now, a year from now, you are one of the folks. So, like, people, dreams come true. Portals are real. You can jump through these portals and go through time. Luke, how are you doing today, brother?
Mark, man, I'm doing fantastic. I'm really happy to be here. And you bring the amount of energy that you do, the amount of smiles, laughs, the big personality and everything else to what you do. You managed to get some things done pretty fast. So no, I'm very, very happy to be here with you and everybody that's been tuning into your show.
Oh, it is awesome. It is awesome to be back, y'all. I've been out for a week, been resting this throat for this interview. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Mark Cordone. I'm a positive psychology coach. Forget about the empirical data. Forget about everything else. It just comes down to two things. How are you feeling today? And are you living in your full purpose? Just two questions: feeling good and living in purpose. So, Luke, I've got a question for you. Are you feeling good and living in full purpose?
I'm feeling good and I'm feeling purpose, brother. Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
Absolutely.
So whether you're watching live or whether you're watching on the replay, I want you to do something for us. I want you to, if you are living in full purpose and feeling good today, show Luke and I some hearts. Show us some hearts. Let us know that your heart is beating and that you're alive. Luke, put your hands together and make a heart with me, Luke.
There it is. All right, show us love.
The president of iPEC is making hearts right now. Right. The president of iPEC is making hearts.
I'm even going to spin off of something that you already brought up. It's that idea of living in full purpose, right?
Okay.
So one of the things, this was a cool conversation that I got into with an interview I was doing recently, where obviously purpose is one of those words that's bandied about in a lot of different directions right now. So there's kind of the real heartfelt, meaningful way that you're describing it. And I know that you talk about it on this show. And then there's the purpose that kind of sounds like some destination or sunshine and rainbows or whatever. And one of the reframes that I love people connecting to, because you talk about it with living in full purpose. Purpose is not a destination. It is not something that is fixed. It is much more about the way that you live, about how you live. One of those wonderful positive psychology terms, it's about flourishing. And when all of those things start to come together, meaning that you do know what's important to you, you know what matters, you know the importance of the relationships, you know what it is that you're contributing to society. When you know about all these types of things, it changes the way that you show up. It's talking about living fully and living deeply. That to me is the embodiment of purpose. And it's
Absolutely.
not and living on purpose, not just something that we go out and try to achieve one day.
Right, like something like seeking purpose. Oh, yeah. Luke Iorio talking about making mistakes. Let's talk about that in a little bit.
I'll even throw that one out there.
Luke is actually going to talk to us about the idea that you're just one idea away from happiness. I cannot wait to explore this with you some more, Luke. I also want to bring this to the other end of things. In terms of positive psychology, Luke brought up that idea of, rainbows, that type of happiness. It's okay if you're not feeling great and feeling like you're living in full purpose right now. It's okay to have that dissonance every now and then. It's okay for you to look at me and be like, yo, Cordone, you're over the top right now. I need to get away from this and just feel the feels. Do that, y'all. That's a part of living life. And if you're doing that, just give us a thumbs up. Your heart is beating just as much as everybody else's. So give us the thumbs up. And know that that's just a part of life. That's a part of happiness as well. Feeling all those feels. Luke, Jorge wants to say hi. Jorge,
hello there, Jorge
from Puerto Rico is one of our big tuning in fans. Good to see you. Jorge, why do you always say Mark like that? Hi, Mark. Love from Puerto Rico. It's good to see you too, brother. Jorge, how are you feeling today over there? But here's the final thing. Whether you're feeling good, functioning well, you've been up, down, all around, it's been a wild week for you like it's been for me. If you're feeling optimistic about the future, it's another button down there. If you're feeling optimistic about the future, give Luke and I a big old wow face. Luke, this is dream come true. We got to see your wow face, Luke. What is your wow face, Luke?
I think you're seeing my wow face right now.
It was an internal bet in the Beyond Resilient group. What would Luke Iorio's wow face look like? So we'll screen cap that and say wow face and make a meme of it. Without any further ado, though, let's talk about just one idea away from true happiness. But even before that, Luke, we want to know, what's your story, man?
Well, the story kind of bundles a lot of this all together.
Yeah.
Let's see. Why don't we, because we can begin way early. So why don't I do this in as fast a version as I sort of could. Okay. So, I look at where I am today, and I'm extraordinarily fortunate. I've been on this ride with iPEC coming up on 14 years, actually now, coming up to that point. Came into it not knowing that one day I'd actually be the CEO of the organization, which I was for almost 7 years. I'm still the president of iPEC, the president of One Ideal Way, which is a new community that we're starting. And so that's where I am today. What people are always kind of amazed by is that I'm out there, I'm on mic all the time. I do videos, I'm on podcasts, I do some speaking, I do some training. I remember having this conversation briefly with Mark just back at the World Happiness Summit during one of the kind of the side conversations that was going on, is that's who I am today. What you would not know is that for much of my life, I grew up as that wallflower. I was a guy that would have been terrified, absolutely terrified by the idea of right now being on mic. And I was just really quiet and reserved. And it just was not, like I said, just could not fathom this. So what was interesting though, and this is the part that really kind of was a very interesting part, I guess, of the journey that I had to go on or did go on to get to where I am, is that I also was not actually originally shy and reserved. So when happened to be when I was 5.5 years old, I was out at the beauty parlor with my mom, and I'm playing around with my toy cars and everything else. And the next thing I know, I'm getting swept up underneath my mom's arm, getting rushed home, and I don't really know what's going on. We find ourselves at the very top of our street, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're almost home. Things are going to be normal now or whatever. I don't really know what's going on. And then we can't get down our street because our street is barricaded by police officers. And one of the officers walks over to my mom's driver's side window and says, ma'am, you can't go down that street. There's a major house fire. And the next words out of my mom's mouth were, I know, it's our house. And so at 5.5 years of age, I went from somebody who's actually a really creative, weird, curious, just out there playful kind of kid, and overnight having kind of that safety and that security and that comfort just completely just ripped away. I went and became extremely quiet, very reserved, and also very self-reliant, because now I felt like, okay, not even my home, not even my parents can keep me safe. So now I need to rely on myself, and I got to be completely self-dependent, self-reliant. I was the teenager who my father would look at me and hand me $20 to go to the movies, and I would hand it back to him, say, no, thanks, I don't need it. I'll get my own. So very different childhood kind of in what I became. Well, so fast forward.
You used to sneak in the back of Star Wars like I did then. Is that what Luke Iorio was saying?
Any way that I needed to get in, right? And but I was out there. I was finding odd jobs. I was doing whatever work I could. I would pick up, and kind of make my own wherever I could. And I was just very reserved. I trouble making friends, shy and wallflower throughout all of high school. Was really just lucky to have some very fortunate to have some friends that kind of pulled me out of my shell. And then I started to get tuned into this world of personal achievement, which my father introduced me to. He had been a 30, 40 year old student of Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie and Og Mandino and James Allen and just kind of the classics of the classics, right? And so it started to introduce me to this idea that we could grow, that so much of our reality was based off of our thoughts and our belief systems, and that these were things that we could play around with, that we could start to condition these different. And that was excellent. And I got much better at achieving in my life. So I combined all the things and becoming very conservative. I got really good at school, very intellectually smart. I relied on that because that was a safety mechanism for me. And then I learned, okay, to how do I achieve personally? So now actually I started to put that intellect to use that could get me ahead, get me a better job, get me good grades, all this other type of stuff. And so I continued down that path, not realizing that I was chasing a dream. I was looking to achieve something that was really not what I actually wanted. And one of the major shifts that occurred then for me was that I was on a train headed into New York on actually, I don't know how many of you are on the East Coast right now, but it's a gorgeous day right now. I mean, it's the clear blue sky outside right now. It was a day just like this, maybe mid 70s, upper 70s. And I'm reading a book, like, an actual book, not a digital device, on the train, back quite a few years ago. And all of a sudden, we're pulling into the train station of Hoboken, New Jersey, and we know now that something is wrong. And as I get into the PATH terminal or into the station, we hear a broadcast that all PATH trains have been closed down to New York. And what we didn't really understand was going on, and we're kind of ushered outside of the terminal, outside of where we were gathering. You clear around the building, and I looked up to my right, and that's when the second tower had just been hit at the World Trade Center on 9/11. And so I was one of the ones that was lucky enough to actually be stopped from going to New York that day. I was not headed to the towers that day, although I'd done a lot of events at the towers. And I lost contact with my family for a little while. They didn't know where I was. They just knew I was headed to New York. I was on the lawn outside of Hoboken Terminal when the first tower came down. And that actually was the moment that profoundly just cracked me open. I had seen a few thousand people around me collapse when that building collapsed, because they were pretty sure they had just lost a loved one. And at that moment and that day, experiencing and seeing some of the tragedy that I saw, and from across the river, I wasn't even in the middle of it, just from across the river. I was reintroduced to a different level of emotion that I had been holding back for much of my life. I was introduced to parts of me that were closed down due to pain and fear and security and all that type of stuff. And I could no longer I broke. It broke through me, and I couldn't hold any of that back anymore. And so I then spent the next many years trying to figure out, okay, what is this emotional self? Who am I really? And it was shortly after that I got into, I left the job that I was in. I got into some brokerage and some consulting work. It was the consulting work that ultimately led to a very fortuitous introduction. Bruce Schneider, and a former partner of his, actually had reached out to me, Bruce Schneider being the founder of iPEC. And it kind of sent me in this just completely different trajectory of a world that I had no idea existed at that moment, and no clue of, here I am, the shy kid who can barely put his emotions back in check. I was good at school. I was good at marketing. I was good at some of these things, knew nothing about actually devoting a career and a life to helping people figure this stuff out for themselves in a manner that allowed them to thrive, that allowed them to flourish, to allow them to live that purpose within all the different things that they did, whether it was career or relationship or whatever. I had no idea that existed. And certainly my path to that point would never have led me to believe that that's where I could ultimately go. And so it was through the different years of then kind of really getting in, working with iPEC, getting to achieve and go through these various iterations of different professional experience and success, relationship success, having a family, having kids and all that. And the last part of the story is simply a little over 2 some odd years ago. I'm now the CEO of iPEC, been doing it for well over 5.5 years. We're having just this really amazing success, and everything that I ever wanted was there. I mean, it's just obvious. Everything is just incredible. And I was miserable. Absolutely miserable. Because the success yet again that I had created was based off of achievement and based off of trying to create a certain life and lifestyle and a certain role, a certain level of success that was achieved. And I had to step back and say, you know what, this is not what I want. I don't like managing a business. That's not the role that I play. And I didn't like some of the ways that I had created that type of leadership position. I'm a creator. I'm an entrepreneur. I like to speak. I like to do retreats. I like to write. I like to podcast. I like to come up with new ideas, which drive some of my other business partners insane. I love that stuff. And I had shut down part of me, a lot of that side of me for a while, thinking that it was this other role that I wanted to fulfill. And so I began, this is actually longer than 2 years ago because I've been out of the position for 2 years. I started a conversation with my partners and some key individuals at iPEC and said, you know what? I think it's better for us to have somebody who has that passion and has that mindset really go out and drive it. And we thankfully had a partner who was ready to do that, Joan Ryan, the CEO of iPEC now. And it allowed me to move into this much more type of creative space to do this type of stuff, to work on this brand new initiative, which is one idea away that's kind of been an evolution over the last couple of years of coming about, and really dabble into this. But I had to go through that whole journey, and something particular in that journey, which we'll talk about in a little while, that I had to find and connect to for me to realize, okay, this is what my idea is. And when I hold on to that idea, I have the level of true happiness that I was actually looking for.
Now, Luke, I wanted to ask you this in terms of there's different iterations of Luke, like Iron Man suits, right? Luke 1.0, the boy that was sort of playing with his car in the mom's beauty, in your mom's, or when your mom was in the beauty salon, sort of this Luke 2.0 that very responsible. And it sounds like if we just put this along a story arc, like a hero's journey story arc, right?
Right.
It seems almost as if an external thing happened to you for you to have for you to say, like, for example, you said that that's when you cracked, or things that you were holding on to, you were easily able to let go of, or things that you couldn't access in terms of emotions you could access. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, do you see an external event being the only way that you can level up?
No, I'm actually really glad that you just brought that up. I know that's usually, it can be the case. I know it's something you talk about. There's both post-traumatic stress as well as post-traumatic growth. Yeah. And I know that is something that's being studied a lot now. It is I don't want to say a usual, but you hear about it more. So maybe it seems like it's more usual, right? Part of what fuels me now, I don't want people to have to go through that. It sucked. It sucked. Right. And then to think that I'm going down a different direction, that, okay, now I've got it figured out, and you achieve something and you're like, crap, that's not it either. Yeah. And I don't want people to have to go through that, or at least to either to be able to minimize it or to have a partner when you are going through it. Right. Because sometimes it's just going to happen and you are going to go through it. But I want to be able to help people think about these things, see these things, investigate things I didn't even know to investigate. I didn't know to uncover parts of myself because I didn't even know they existed. Sure. And so it took an external event to shake me and crack me for me to all of a sudden go, oh, wow, where did this come from? And while that can occur, if there's any way to save people from having to go through the full extremes of that, I'd love to be able to do that. Or for those that are going through it, or just will go through it, because we can't control that aspect of life. There's 7 billion other people plus planets and universes and everything else. We can't control all that. And so things are going to happen. And to be able to be there, and I don't just mean be there as a person or as a coach. This is part of honestly, this is part of one of the fundamental drivers behind One Idea Away, is that people don't have the same social support network that they used to have. We're organized as a community and as societies different than we ever have before. And while things like technology give us the illusion of connection, it ain't there. And so the more that we can get together with those close friendships, the more and more that we can get together with close communities that are really truly there to understand and accept us for who we are, help us uncover and understand these things about ourselves, and support us and rally us and encourage us and challenge us while we go on this journey, I'd rather do it that way. And I'd rather do it while we're walking side by side, figuring it out, as opposed to what felt like completely isolated and completely cracked and absolutely no idea where I was going to go.
Oh, that's so awesome, man. And you totally let my secret out of the bag. The idea when I talk about feeling good is a singular me thing. How well do I feel today? And the idea of living in full purpose has to do with the us, the we of things. How am I feeling in terms of my place in the greater good today? And the way that you're putting that is going to shut down my intros now from now on, because you kind of let the secret out of the bag there. Jorge is saying, "Give me some love, Luke." So he's liking it. Ritu from California is touching base and saying hi to us. Ritu wrote a fantastic book, y'all, called The New Billable Hour, on how basically lawyers, so folks who are working the hustle, don't have to burn out. The new billable hour, I'm going to let the secret out of the bag with her too, is that you put yourself first and take care of yourself. Love the book. Check it out. Allison Prophet, someone from iPEC, is tuning in saying, "Mark and Luke, so grateful to be part of this today. Gratuity, that's a big thing. Love to hear that. Jorge's coming back. I love that mentality, Iorio." And he just gave you a birthday cake. Nice. You're the best in the whole world. And then whatever that means, awesome, Jorge. Awesome. So talk to us a little bit more about this one idea away piece now, because it sounds like this is where you're moving more towards now, right? This is the new jam right now.
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of things to this, but probably one of the first and most important is we looked at a lot of different ways of framing this. And it could have been, one thought away, one belief away, one perspective away. But beliefs, thoughts, perspectives, things along those lines are usually things that we have some form of either attachment to or judgment towards. An idea is just a possibility. That's all it is. An idea is just simply a possibility. Now, that said, the one idea that we need to be one idea away from whatever it is that we're after is not just any old idea. This is not just simply about, okay, if I keep a better to-do list, my life changes. It may feel that way for a day or two, but that's not really fundamentally going to change your life. The ideas that we're talking about are the types of ideas that are consciousness shifting. They're paradigm breaking. They are the type of ideas that are at the root level of your belief system and of your consciousness. So that when you grab hold of one of these, it doesn't just change one aspect or one little area or project in your life. It has a cascade effect. And you just watch this thing ripple through and change 100 other beliefs, because it was so core and deep seated to kind of who you are and what you are. And so that's the first part of it. And when I started to look back at my life, and, this was not, simply for myself. I mean, this is conversations with Bruce Snyder, who just actually part of this is even talked about in his recent book, Uncovering the Life of Your Dreams. I know you've done a wonderful job of sharing that on the show. I've talked about this with my other partner, Liz Fish, and Joan Ryan, and a whole bunch of others at iPEC of how this all came together. But as we each reflected, and I'll just speak for myself, when I reflected on my own life, I started to recognize that every time I had one of those ideas that made me look at how I really saw the world. Why do I actually believe the things that I do? Did I intentionally choose that? Or was it something that was conditioned in me by society, or the way that my parents would have done things, or the way that a boss would have done things, whatever the case may be? And I started to peel that back and say, why do I really believe that? So those types of questions, those types of ideas that had me investigate, that had me go into an inquiry type process, that always was behind a major shift that I was making in my life. And when I started to get those realizations, that led me closer and closer to that feeling of being me, that feeling of being in alignment with who I really am, that's when the next level of quote unquote success would occur. But the type of success that would occur is more in alignment with what I really wanted, even if I didn't know that's where I wanted to go. It just starts to fuse together. And so that one idea is something that is really, truly a deep core belief shaking, consciousness shifting, paradigm breaking type of an idea that has you investigate and just look at your world and look at yourself differently.
So when I'm hearing you talk about this idea, this one idea, I really am thinking almost about what are the things in terms of the way that I would use the word assume in this case, the way that we assume things are real, right? There's an invisible buttress that we have that hold up these ideas, right? And really, this process is, how do we make visible the things that we have always seen as, well, that's just the way that it's always frickin' been. Those are the invisible buttresses that have held up that tapestry. Yes. But then if you see that tapestry, it begins to come crashing down, and you can, in many ways, things are an illusion, right?
Yeah.
Y'all, let us know what you're thinking here. We're getting some, we're picking up some steam here. Allison Prophet checking in again. Wouldn't that be amazing if that was easy? Make a better list and voila.
Exactly.
We got some more iPEC folks coming in here. Mark and Luke. Donna and Vicky, iPEC folks are watching from NYC, going to Kyla's Happiness Workshop tonight. She was from the World Happiness Summit, I believe, Kyla. So she's going to be doing stuff. Awesome to see people are connecting. We got Canada coming in. Kulas from Toronto. Hope you're doing well, Kulas. It's great to see that you've been scoring some more clients. I saw your testimonials today. Awesome stuff, man. So really, to uncover some of these ideas that have been really locked in, it's a matter of courageous inquiry, awareness of self. Interesting. Now, let me ask you this. Inquiry can often lead to, well, what really is real? So because I've definitely had these experiences where I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't real. This gives me freedom. Then I've had these experiences where I've been like, if that's not real, what the hell is real? And I'll go into like an existential crisis. Now, is that all a part of the process, Luke, of uncovering the one idea, or is there something? Are there dangers there?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that there's dangers there. I think the piece that when you go through inquiry type processes, okay, so whether that be, coaching or retreats or meditation or positive psychology, whatever it's going to be, right? The value of those types of processes is that you're doing it within what I guess you could say is a safe space, right? So that what's going to happen when you go through it, it's inevitable that areas of vulnerability are going to be seen. Whether you want it or not, you're gonna uncover, and it's kind of like pulling off a few band-aids that have been protecting a few things, and all of a sudden it's there. And so to know a little bit of that going in, to know how you put a little bit of that safety net around you, and more of it's a social safety net, whether, like I said, it's a coach or a positive psychologist or what have you, or even just a community, a mindfulness community, something like that. That can be really, really helpful going into it. And if that isn't available to you, to find your way of processing. So for some, when you go through this, it's just knowing, okay, when I hit one of those, planning ahead, when I hit one of those moments that feels really uncomfortable, have a plan for what you're going to do. Is it that you're going to, maybe that you need time to process through journaling. Maybe you need time to process through going off on a nice hike out in nature and just getting reconnected. Maybe it's you need to process while you're tying in some fitness activity or going for a run. You just have some planning around how to work through those types of moments. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's all doom and gloom and, oh my God, I'm in a cave and it's dark and I don't have any light around me, right? I don't want to make it sound like that.
I'm in a cave and it's dark.
Yeah, you're not going to end up in a little black room like Mark is right now. But it is the realization that you're really, you're looking down at your core, and some of the beliefs that you may look at and some of the ways you even know yourself may end up having you look and say, wow, I see myself differently, which means my self-image, my concept, my identity of who I am isn't what I thought it would be. It's going to be a little different. And that can be scary. It was scary for me. I've gone through it now a couple of different times. And it's still scary. Even going through it a couple of years ago with all of the tools in the background of the training that I went through, still a scary time, and not knowing exactly where it's going to go or where it's going to end up. But there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. That's part of, just as you said before, there's going to be times where you're not feeling good. You're not necessarily feeling like things are all in the way that they should be. That's fine. That's where you should be at that moment. Because if you don't face those moments, experience those moments, embrace those vulnerabilities, embrace those times that are of challenge, you won't actually get to that state of flourishing. It's the, as you and I, we're connected with Tal Ben Shahar. He describes it as a whole being, right?
Yep.
We want to embrace the wholeness of who we are. And the more and more that we uncover, what you're really finding out, and that's the interesting thing, is that the more that you uncover, you're not uncovering new things about you. You're uncovering things that were always there. You just didn't see them. And so this idea that we are not whole people is just simply because we can't necessarily see the wholeness of who we are at any given time. And the uncovering process is just consistently peeling back things that have been covered up in different ways through the years. And sometimes it's going to reveal something that's really cool and really exciting and really, builds the enthusiasm, and you're going to love it. Like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm going to lean into that. And other times you're going to open something up and go, oh, got it. I don't want to look at that. Mm-mm. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But having a plan around you, thinking it through as you start to go on the process. And most of the time, honestly, the process begins without you intending it.
Yeah.
Life happens. Something has you get reflective or introspective, whatever. It's just whenever that moment pops up and you say, you know what, I think I recognize I'm on kind of a discovery quest, an uncovery quest right now. Now might be time for me to connect with a coach or a partner or a social group, like a One Idea Away or a mindfulness group, whatever, right? Connect to something that allows you to continue to move through what you're moving through, and that they can be really supportive and helpful while you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great point that you bring up, Luke. When you go into an uncovery process like this, sometimes you know what's on the other side, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's a complete surprise for you.
Yeah.
But when you are like what you were talking about, when you're in alignment versus going with the status quo or what you've been spoon fed or what you've seen on the movies for how many years you've been sneaking into the movies, Iorio, once we start uncovering what truly is genuine and authentic, I'll use a me statement. Someone had asked me, what the heck are you eating right now to be doing all these lives? Your hair's always red. You're always going wild. You're writing books. You're doing this. And the thing is that I don't see myself working any harder than I was in my PhD program or before this. It just seems to be like the alignment that I am in right now. Yeah. I just know that when I sit down to write, it's going to go somewhere, versus feeling like there was no direction before when I was just kind of doing work in circles. It almost feels like, versus doing work and it hits the road and moves.
I'd even describe it as when you get into a level of congruency with what is more and more closer and closer and closer to the true self that you are, you begin to experience a state of flow, but different from. It's not just like the flow that an athlete experiences. It's not Shaun White diving down a mountain and doing, flips and bends and everything else. Believe me, he's in flow. I'm not taking anything away from that. But there's a different flow of life that you start to tap into. And because of that, one of those qualities of flow states is that it's effortless and that it's timeless. And your engagement goes into that without you even trying. And so when you are aligned around who you really truly are, because you've got to ask yourself, so we're getting into kind of what was the one idea for me that led to this was alignment, right? So just be very clear to everybody. This is that idea for me. It's not the same idea for everybody. For me, alignment was a huge one, but it began with asking myself, what was I aligning to? See, the challenge was I was in alignment for a long time. Problem was not in alignment to truly who I am, not to my true self and not to what I actually truly wanted. And so I aligned myself around, a lot of, call it cultural norms of success. Yeah. And I aligned myself around certain expectations of what achievement is supposed to bring you, the happy when myth, right? I'm going to be happy when I achieve this. I'm going to be happy when I get that. I'm going to be happy when it's not going to happen. Okay. So I was in alignment to that belief. And I was in alignment to showing up in that way. And the problem was it was an accelerator to where I did not want to be.
Sure. Sure.
And it was only when I continued to peel back and peel back and peel back and peel back and keep going deeper and deeper and deeper was I able to say, you know what? I tell you right now, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
I do not believe that I'm in my final iteration by a long shot, but I believe that I'm closer and truer to the core of my identity of who I really am inside than I ever have been before. And uncovering is about peeling back to find that.
And there's something about that. There's some, when you're talking about one idea away, I've this is something like 36 episodes, and one of the biggest threads that I'm seeing is folks who get into this authentic alignment. I don't know what else to call it. Yeah. Seem to do what we as a society think are superhuman feats. We had someone the other day that if there was a 60-day pilgrimage planned out, and she did it in something like 20 days. And the only thing she could say was, I just knew I was in alignment. I was supposed to do that pilgrimage. And the way that she described it, though, was similar to what other guests have said on this show. Is they get into this alignment and the mind slows down, but everything else seems to be happening at a faster pace. And it doesn't feel like it's frenetic. It doesn't feel like it's entropic and everything is going wild around you. It just feels very slow. But then in perceived reality to others, things are going by so fast. And I think that's one of the really cool ideas, if someone was interested in exploring that in the One Idea community, that we can attach to. Now, before we go into the happiness piece, I want to be very clear about now that this One Idea community is coming forward. Is the core of it community? Is it one idea away as a provocation to everyone as individuals? Is it just a space? We got David coming in from Costa Rica. David, it is good to see you. But when it starts getting cold on this neck of the woods, like, is there one idea away things that we can do in Costa Rica? So, like, how do you put together one idea away so that we could walk away and like have an elevator idea of it, of what it does? So
the answer to pretty much every question you just asked was yes. It's all of those things, but at the kind of at the core of it, what we recognize that people are looking for, trying to connect to, as well as what ultimately works for them to be able to get to where they want to go in life, to experience what they want to experience in life. There's a few things that are important. One is that idea, meaning what is that consciousness-based, that consciously chosen life philosophy and belief system that we want to choose for ourselves that leads us to have the type of life that we want to be able to have. So to be able to consciously choose those ideas, to consciously choose that belief system, to consciously choose that philosophy, One Idea Away is about sharing ideas, sharing questions, sharing exercises to help you connect to your philosophy of life for your real, true, consciously chosen belief system. That's one. However, a belief system only takes hold when you start to move it forward, meaning it's got to change the way that you show up. It's got to change the way you relate. It's got to change the way that you take action in this world. And one of the best ways to do that, and one of the things that we have found repeatedly, is that when you are in community with other people who are going through this journey, it gives you the encouragement and the inspiration and the light to be able to continue to move forward. So one of the challenges that many people will run into is they're in so-called normal life. They're running along that typical career path. They're going after the achievement, the success-oriented, achievement-oriented success that they believe they want. Now, all of a sudden, there's this idea that rocks their world and says, you know what? If this is 20 years from now, I'm not going to be happy because I'm going to have sacrificed this and this and this and this. I'd rather make a pivot now. Awesome. Now they're onto something that may actually lead them to live that more full life, to be more embodied within their purpose. So now they start to get fired up and I'm going to move in this different direction. Then what happens? 90% of the people that are in their life going, wait a minute, that's not who you are. You're supposed to be this guy over here. Come back over to how we know you. Come back and stay because your changing scares me. Yep. And so now all of a sudden you start to get these external influences. Now I'm making a little bit of light of this and embellishing slightly, but not that much.
Nope.
And you start to get all of these different external pressures that are they want to keep you as the status quo, because fear comes out anytime the status quo is challenged, right? And so to be able to look for a community which is both resource and people that can help encourage you and support you, as well as challenge you to continue through and be successful at the new path that you've chosen, is something that is incredibly helpful to have in life. And so we're looking to bring those things together, meaning how is it that we bring the ideas that help people consciously choose their direction in life and consciously choose that life philosophy? How do we bring them together with a support system, a community that will allow them to continue to do that, that will encourage them and challenge them along the way? And how is it that we can do that in a manner that also allows us to share those experiences at the same time? So with that as kind of the backdrop of what this is, we're doing that through sharing ideas through multimedia. You can connect to oneidealway.com. You can see some of the articles. You can see the podcast. You can see some of the events that we'll be doing. The events, most of them right now are virtual. You're about to see a series of local and regional events that are going to be rolling out, so that it is not just something that resides online, although wherever you are in the world, you can benefit from connecting it online, but there actually will be face-to-face, eyeball-to-eyeball type of connection, so that you can connect with others within your area. You can have these conversations. You can continue to move forward. And then if you want to come to some of the bigger events that we do later on that are in the works right now, great. I'd love to meet you in person. Yeah. But it really is about that grassroots and marrying it all together.
I love how that really goes from an idea to a community, right? Yes. And then the community being able to, while someone is sort of getting their new bearings with the new sort of buttresses that they're putting in place with their new ideas, having a new support system there. Now, you can go and say that you're getting hyperbolic on me, Luke, but, there was a writer a couple years ago called Nietzsche who talked about the same things in metaphor. Yeah. He basically said, look, the community will support you, but then all of a sudden you sprout wings, and the second you try to fly, they'll try to clip it. So, you could say that he was hyperbolic as well then with his ideas. But there are, when you do go through some changes, there are folks who wanted to keep you in a safe space. Oftentimes, as the part of the brain, oftentimes wants to keep us in a safe spot. So, internal and external, sometimes it's difficult, and it feels like a rubber band stretching. And when you let it go, you always think it will snap back. But the thing is, with the One Idea Away community, from what I'm getting from this is something where you stretch and you can let it go, and it stays at that new area, that new capacity. Yeah. So let's talk about this one idea away into true happiness, because Luke, I don't know if when we first met, I don't know if we were on the same page with happiness. So talk to me about this now. One idea away from true happiness. What do you mean by true happiness?
Yeah. So, for me, I think, we started to allude to it before. All right. So much of the way that happiness has been pushed out there inside of our culture is not actually what happiness was meant to be. So we were not on the same page when the happiness movement really, kind of erupted onto the scene going back almost 20 years ago. Marty Seligman in front of the whole APA just kind of blows things up. Right. And so now all of a sudden happiness starts to take off, and there's books and there's research, all this type of stuff is coming out there. And when I first started to hear about some of this, maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, oh, come on. It's just the latest phase. It's a fad. It's sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and all that type of stuff. People don't need yet another whitewashed Pollyanna excuse that makes them just simply feel good for a little while. Yep. And I completely saw it that way. Why? Because I was operating under what was a lot of the cultural understanding of what happiness is. And so what we were talking about, and a lot of the misnomer and a lot of the misorientation that people have towards happiness, most of the time they're talking about pleasure. They're talking about one piece of happiness. And pleasure, of course, we all know that it's temporary. And so that was one issue with it. The other issue that was there, which, again, came from later understanding, I described it before, it's the happy when myth or the happy when syndrome. There's a lot of influences, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's part of that consumer culture, the achievement culture of I'll be happy when. And whether it's through, marketing and advertising that tells us, well, you're not really whole and you're not really complete without the latest insert product here. right? And so there's that side of it, and we're bombarded by that all day long. And then we're always told to be striving for this next level, whatever that means. And so whether it's an income or it's promotion or it's status or it's title, it's recognition, it's whatever, it's always about how something external is supposed to be achieved. Some situation is supposed to be crafted for us to then feel happy. And it puts happiness completely at the end of the equation. That's not this. That's not true happiness. That is crafting a life that is either one, going to give you temporary fleeting moments of pleasure, or it's just going to honestly just sell you on a false paradigm. And you're not ever going to have the happiness that you're looking for. So the reverse, that true happiness, is actually something that truly resides within you. And I prefer the languaging that has now kind of come to be the focus of the positive psychology movement and happiness movement, is things like flourishing and whole being. Because these embody so much more of what was really meant by happiness. Now, the true definitions, as you well know, Mark, of so much of this conversation began 2,000, 2,500 years ago with the ancient Greek philosophers and some of the wisdom traditions. And they were talking about a more complete version of happiness that incorporated our purpose and our relationships and our virtues and our strengths and all of these different aspects of who we really truly are. And when you bring those things into alignment, you have this thing called human flourishing. And that's really what most people are after. Is you described it before of the flow of life that you're in. There's an experience of life that people want to be able to tap into where they just feel like they're engaged. They feel like they're living fully. They feel like they're flourishing. That's really what, to me, true happiness is at the core of, is how do we flourish as human beings? And not just as human beings, meaning that it's the same formula for everybody. It's how do we uniquely flourish as a human, personally, individually, uniquely, and then how do we bring that out and flourish with others, allowing each of us to stand uniquely as we are, but also being able to create this really cool shared space together as well.
Well, you threw out a nice question, so I'm going to throw it back at you. That's what y'all taught me at iPEC. How would you answer that question?
Which one? Sorry.
Back me up. The big question here about how do we actually go about sort of looking inwards and really looking at this inward type of happiness, flourishing, thriving, whole being. How do we? So I have been, having our antennas tuned one way, just kind of retune it, recalibrate
absolutely. It. There's a couple of different models that are out there. Personally, I'm drawn to what Tal Ben-Shahar has done with the SPIRE model. SPIRE, for those that are new to the realm, stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. And so those are 5 different components that combine together to create this happiness, this flourishing within our lives. And so whether it's that model or one of the other models that may be out there, it starts to give you directions to look within on and start to look at. So spiritual is really about how do we derive meaning within our lives? How is it that we do derive that purpose? How do we feel like we are connected to something perhaps bigger than us? It could be religion, but it doesn't have to be. Right. So it really helps us understand, well, what matters most to us? How do we orient our lives based off of what those beliefs are around what's important and significant to us? And it has us investigate that. That leads to really understanding who we are a lot better. Why do we believe the things we believe? Why do we value the things that we value? And when we start to dig in there, we begin to understand the essence of more of who we are, and what we want to place at the center of our lives. Then you get into some of the other areas of physical and the vitality that comes along with it, because just purely from a happiness standpoint, a lot of our physical nature, our nutrition and digestion and vitality is connected to our hormonal system. The hormonal system has major implications to our emotional system. So the way you take care of yourself physically does have an absolute impact on how we flourish within life. Intellectual, and this is interesting to me, and we talk about this in iPEC. We use something called the mental model. Tal calls it intellectual, very similar overlap here. But with intellectual, one of the things that misses, and I actually just had this come up with a client, interestingly enough, the spiritual, the physical, the relational, and the emotional were really well aligned for him. They were like really, really close, just minor adjustments here and there. The piece he didn't realize was that he kept calling it achievement. He was just looking for intellectual stimulation. He was no longer challenged by what he was doing. So he was bored. And it was having a cascade effect because intellectual was actually something really important to him. That mental stimulation, really important to him. So intellectual does have to do with mental stimulation. It has to do with how are we organizing and focusing in such a manner that we can really truly use the brain power that each of us has, the intelligence that we actually have. And so that's certainly a part of it is having that mental well-being there, or intellectual well-being. Relational, certainly understanding how it is that we are in relation with others. That's a huge component. You know, it's now shown, and it's now multiple studies, but the core one is the adult development study that was done out of Harvard that shows that our connection, the quality of our relationships, the number one single greatest indicator of our happiness, well-being, longevity. And they're now finding that if you extract that into communities of relationship, they're now finding that it is also the most important ingredient when it comes to economics, to education, overall safety inside of a community. They're just boom, 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 just keeps expanding how important connection is to us. And so we're social animals. That's what we are. The relational component is a critical aspect of understanding what do I want relations to look like for me? What is it that's truly important? How do I want to interact with people? And for me, I've joked about it for years. You might get a sense of it from this conversation. I'm the last person who will enjoy going to a party and having coffee talk. I don't like it. It's boring. I want to know who you are. I want to know what's going on in your life. And I want to know that because I want to know how either excited you are or what you're processing through. I want to know you. And so that's part of my kind of true happiness is actually getting to know people at that level, and not just at the surface. And emotional, same type of thing is how is it that we cultivate our emotional well-being? And I very specifically say emotional well-being and not just simply positive emotion, because I think this is also one of those great misunderstandings about the happiness movement is that it's always about feeling good. As you were saying before, it's always about the steering yourself to the positive emotion. And if you don't have the positive emotion, something must be wrong. That is not it. It's about emotional well-being. When you are down, be down, process it, be there, experience it. You say, feel the feels, connect to where you are and just honor and accept the experience that you're in at that moment. And take a look at what are the things that you can do over time that continue to build your emotional resiliency, that can build your emotional well-being, like gratitude, like, the best three things on a given day, looking for the things that bring you that happiness. So that over time, what you find is that through a lot of the practices of emotional well-being is that your resiliency gets stronger. And it's not that you're not going to have down days. Of course, you're going to have down days, but they're not going to affect you quite the same way. And you're going to bounce back even quicker. And, so that's also part of it. So I'm using Tal's model of SPIRE to kind of walk through this. There are, like I said, there's others that are out there. That's the one I'm most drawn to because of, again, he frames it around the idea of whole being able to look at the wholeness of who we actually are, as opposed to looking at us in fragments and only looking at pieces.
And I think one of the things that I've seen is whether you're looking at something like a SPIRE model, there's also a model out there called PERMA. For those who have seen Marty Seligman's work, very similar in styles. It looks at sort of an integrative approach to you as a person in totality, right? And that was one of the things that has changed me so much. So I answer like 3 to 4 different kind of press questions about happiness every day, right? And anything from I had someone interview me yesterday about emotional intelligence, and I had someone interview me yesterday about new students going into college. And the thing that I always find myself going back to is, it comes back to SPIRE, like when you're going into college, what does meaning look like as you're transitioning? What does your physical, like there's, you're sleeping at different times. You got to change, you have to get back into a new routine. Your intellect, that is going to change as well. Your relationships, you're going through a new transition, and then your emotions are going to be all over the place with all these new processes and honor codes to learn, and then being away from home. And for those of you who are watching, I want you to think about Spire, SPIRE, and how that's relating in your life right now. For those of you, I'm just looking down here, I'm seeing a bunch of coaches in here today. So for those of you who are coaches, go and making that transition, what does Spire look like for you right now? For those of you in Miami and living it up, California, you're writing your book, you're starting you're starting your group down over in California. What does Spire look like for you? What does it mean for you to be living sort of holistically as a whole being right now? And I'm really glad that you brought it in. And for those of you who are making reactions, I see y'all there too. The roller derby players, the moms who are the moms who are doing amazing things to take care of your kids. I know that you're watching right now. What does Spire look like for you? What does SPIRE mean? Spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. What does that mean for you? And to bring it back to some of the things that Luke was saying earlier, there's no one answer when it comes to the internal piece now. Now that you're turning into true happiness, there is no one blueprint answer anymore. But it is cool that there are models for us to understand this.
Mark, the one idea I will add in here. Something that came up again out of a couple of interviews that I've done recently on the podcast One Idea Away, is that what we're talking about with the Spire model, and also what we really talk about at iPEC is coaching somebody around their consciousness. What we're looking at is that if you've got a certain output, meaning you've got a certain experience of life that you ultimately want to be able to have and live in and flow in on a regular type of basis, that's at one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is your input, meaning that life is going to create situations and circumstances, a lot of which is actually going to be outside of your control. And so you've now got these inputs that you don't really truly have control over. What we're talking about is that in between the inputs and the outputs is a manufacturing plant. Now, your manufacturing plant is your consciousness. And it's that life philosophy that I was talking about before. So if you consciously design the processes that are how you want to see the world and see the inputs, if you consciously decide what is it that I really truly believe, which is how I'm even going to view life, is through those beliefs and through the way that I've experienced life. If you consciously choose, this is how I'm going to navigate my relationships and my physicality and all of these types of things, then more often than not, who you are as a manufacturing process will produce the output of life that you're looking to have. And so what we're really talking about is helping people consciously create that process so that no matter what the input is, you know what to do with the input in such a manner that you get the experience of life that you're wishing to have.
I'm loving it. So let's talk about this conscious creation and some opportunities here. I'm looking at the oneideaaway.com/happy link right now. And it's for y'all. It's one link away. It's right there in it's in our show notes right now. What is going to happen when we go and click on this link, oneideaaway.com/happy?
Yeah, so get over there, because you're gonna see information actually about our partnership with the Happiness Studies Academy for a major program. It's actually quite literally the first of its kind on happiness, because it's an interdisciplinary approach. It pulls from positive psychology and literature, spirituality and philosophy, and even economics, and all of these different incredible fields to show us really kind of that true happiness that's there. Now, inside of where they go, they're going to find some information on it. You can actually sign up and get the first lesson that's part of the course. So you can kind of see what's there and see what it's leading to. You can hear from the primary founder of the course, Tal Ben-Shahar. iPEC and myself are partnered specifically for those that are coaches taking the coaching track. That's where iPEC has a partnership to bring that together as well. And so inside of that course, you're going to end up learning that Spire model. You're going to learn, and actually the beauty of the way that Tal laid this out, and the beauty of what we're doing with the coaches as well, there's nothing that you learn that you don't then apply for yourself and learn how to talk about with others. So it's not just a course where you're downloading information. Yeah. This is an experience that you go on, and it's a journey that you go on. And the beauty is you do it with some incredible experts you're learning from, but you also do it in community. And you're doing it with a group, you're doing it with a cohort. So you're going to get to know some people. You're probably going to make some friends that you can't even believe how close you're going to get to, and you go through this whole journey. And so you can do that through the Happiness Studies Academy. If you're a coach, you can take the coach specific track. And if you actually are not in the field yet and you want to be a full happiness coach, you can do both. Look into the happiness program as well as look into the iPEC program as well.
Right on, right on. What I love about the way that you talked about that was positive psychology, happiness. You know, and if anyone has seen the work of Tal Ben-Shahar, the primary founder and I believe the chief lecturer in the program,
founder, chief teacher, he's the guy. He's the one who drove this together.
Right on. He comes from a lineage of research. He bases it in research. But one of the problems I saw early on with positive psychology, you know, maybe 10 years ago, was how do we apply this sort of esoteric knowledge? And now it's getting to the point where application is absolutely key. Yeah. Absolutely key. So oneideaaway.com/happy. You get to see the first module up in there, y'all. Click it, see, like it and love it. Now I've got another link here. What do we get when we're one link away from clicking this? oneideaaway.com/join. What are we getting ourselves into with that, Luke?
What are you getting yourself into? You're getting yourself into a very, very different conversation. Honestly, is probably the way to think about it. When you join into One Idea Away, and guys, it's a free membership, so it's there's no bar here. It's come on in. You're going to get access to behind the scenes. So, there's a lot of stuff that we do public, that some of the articles that are out there, and yes, some of the podcast, but we also tie that to different conversations. We tie that to different exercises of how do we apply this? How do we integrate this? What do we do with this? And you're doing that inside of a community that is similar and working on all of these types of things together. So you've got great resources, you've got great conversation, you've got some great people that are there. You'll see us orchestrating things. You'll hear from me regularly, my team regularly, the One Idea Away team regularly, and you'll really start to get plugged into it. And then you will also be, among the first that starts to show up at some of these specific events that we've got planned really around the country and around the world.
Anything you can fill us in on with these events?
There are the one that, I'll give you two little teasers. One is the local and regional type stuff. Right now, one of the secrets behind it, or one of the reasons how it comes together, there's actual coaches that are going to be facilitating those meetings. So what that means is that when you go to a meeting, you're not only just getting into a really intriguing conversation, meeting some great people, you're actually being led by somebody who has a lot of depth in how do you help people move through these issues. It's a major, major, major kind of, value add of how we're structuring this, so that people always have access to just the top help that they possibly can. That's one. The other is me and this other guy, Bruce Schneider, who founded iPEC and wrote this recent book, Uncovering the Life of Your Dreams. There might be some retreats that are being planned at the end of the year. Okay. And so stay tuned for that, because those are going to be, Bruce and I do not go out and teach very much often anymore. And so it'll be a private, much more intimate type of experience. And those are forthcoming.
Well, it wasn't until the hour mark that Luke rolled his eyes at me that I pushed you to tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you've got. But one of the things that's awesome too about the One Idea Away movement, just from seeing what's going on, is that it very much reminds me of grassroots movements that I was a part of in college. That I've got to say in things. It's not just, stay tuned and wait for someone to talk about, a possible event. You can be sitting there in California, Denver. I see where you guys are at. Wyoming, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, Florida down here. We can be looking around right now and looking at our community, and we can be seeing things that other people aren't seeing yet. And that's part of when the scaffolding starts coming down, y'all, and these ideas start coming into your mind. You can start creating at this epic rate and affecting an epic amount of people, and living a life that you've the life of your dreams. And I think that's what's awesome about this. Oh, I'm sorry, Loveland, Colorado. I'm getting called out from the good folks here. Yes, I think that this has been awesome. Y'all, there's some links. So we got Wyoming coming in. We got Loveland, Colorado. Love the resources on One Idea Away site. Allison, it looks like you already jumped on that. Thank you, Allison. The Spire model is so powerful, especially that the needle will shift, and that is just part of our journey. The intellectual aspect of Spire for me has been something that I have been working on creating more alignment with. My career spent in HR and huge misalignment with values that was bubbling up was the catalyst for me to pursue my iPEC journey, and moving towards coaching to HR leaders creates so much joy and inspiration. To Allison, to be able to affect organizations inside out through their HR leaders. She gets the goosies. She gets the goosies. We get the goosies too. You just can't see us because it's covering our face because you wrote so much, Allison. Love it. Love it. Love it. Billy Joe is talking about balance. That's what she's getting from today's conversation. So lots of good stuff. Feeling the feels, so important. Thank you all for contributing today. Luke, we've got one more thing for you. This is why it's called the Golden Mic. I saved my voice for a week because I knew it'd go out. I knew it'd go out if I stayed on for 1 hour with you. So what I want you to do, Luke, is this. First of all, on behalf of all of us, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for letting us know a little bit about your life and letting us know that you'll walk around with permanent wow face on. We did not know this was permanent wow face, Luke. That's great to know now. So I want to do a little exercise with you, Luke. I want to do a little visioning exercise with you.
Okay.
So you got a great, wonderful mic up there with you, but I want you to imagine right now that a microphone is coming down from the ceiling in front of you now. It's a golden mic of sorts. And this golden mic, which is stopping right now in front of your face, can you believe it, y'all? I'm doing this with the Luke Iorio. they're like making the wow faces. This golden mic now is stopping in front of you, Luke. And for 2 minutes, the golden mic translates to every language. And every person on this earth will be listening when I flip the switch. So, Luke, I'm now about to flip the switch, and you're going to be on the golden mic. Luke, you now have the golden mic.
Thank you, Mark. I think for everyone, one of the greatest things that you can do in life is to begin to uncover the essence of who you really truly are. And what I mean by that is to look beneath everything that society and culture and the media and politics, everything that has been out there that has conditioned you in certain ways. It's to peel all of that back, to peel back behind all of life's experiences, because you're so much more than anything that has occurred for you or to you within this life. There is something much deeper that is there. And the more that we uncover the essence of who we really truly are, we start to recognize the gifts, the talents, the extraordinary nature of who we are that we have to be able to share with this world and to be able to contribute to this world. When you go on that type of exploration, when you start to tap into your consciousness in this way, you will begin to live within a flow of life that is very difficult to be able to put into words, except it is something that you will not only feel through the very essence of every ounce of who you are, but it is something that will be felt by all of those that you start to come into contact with. They'll feel it. It's contagious. They won't even know why. But it all stems from you being true, not just simply to yourself, but being true to your true self. And you can only know that when you really peel back behind all the assumptions, all the blocks, all the fears, to be able to understand the essence of who you really truly are and what you are meant to bring into this life. Spend that time, not simply for your benefit, though. Spend that time because we need you to. The more people that show up this way, the more permission you give for other people to show up this way. You have an obligation to do this, not for your own path, but for the path of others. Please do so.
You know, you can drop that golden mic if you feel like it, Luke. Oh, we got a mic drop from Luke Iorio. One Idea Away podcast. Thank you for tuning in. They are watching. It's almost like a secret society. The One Idea Away folks are watching. Y'all, you want to join the society? You're one click away. Do it. Allison, we got some tears welling up on her side. I'm freaking out too. She's losing her mind at how cool this is. Luke, student becomes the teacher. I know I'm totally freaking out, guys. oneideaaway.com/choose your own adventure. Happy or join or click both. Luke, Iorio, thank you so much for joining us today. If y'all liked it, if you loved this episode, share it out, re-comment, get it to your buds. I believe the Happiness Studies Academy course starts on the 22nd of May.
Yeah, starting soon.
So we got a couple days, but definitely send it out. Check out that free course. Keep in touch with Luke. I am your boy Mark Cordone. We're going to be coming at you soon. And I got a final thing for you. If you're feeling good and you're living in full purpose, the question that I have for you is, what is your responsibility to go out and hit that greater good? All right, I'm Mark Cordone with the Golden Mic. We will see you again on Friday. My voice is going to be stronger and stronger every day. Luke, thank you again. We'll see you soon. Peace out. Take care.